Meantime, the Apple slide continues today. The star of most of last year is now the fifth worst performer in the S&P 500 this year. And it's certainly been a really rough ride for Apple shareholders since the iPhone 5. Why do we say that? Well, look at this timeline, right? Back on August 24th, 2011, Tim Cook was named Apple CEO. On September 4th, 2012, Apple announces the iPhone 5. On November 2nd, 2012, Apple announces the iPad mini. And you can see that the iPhone 5 announcement was nearly the peak for the stock, at least so far. Apple shares down 29% since the iPhone 5 launch and down 21% since the iPad mini came out. So this begs the question, if Apple's slide continues and new products fail to amaze, is Tim Cook cooked as Apple CEO? Let us bring in John Fort, Herb Greenberg, and Reggie Middleton, editor of the Boom Bust blog. And I should note that Reggie put a note out to his clients. I'm not sure the exact price point on Apple, but it was doggone near the top, saying get out of the stock. It was a great call. Why'd you make it, and what do you see happening now?
Okay, well, two reasons for making it. Number one is margin compression thesis. Apple is pretty much done in terms of a fat margin business model, simply because the competition from Google was designed.
So you think Apple's margins have peaked? They will never be as high as they have been?
Absolutely never. Absolutely never. A lot of people think it's a technology race between Apple and Google, but Google used a business model to attack Apple and not necessarily tech. That business model is what we call a less than free model, which prevents Apple from charging extreme margins. Apple is not done as a company. They can either make better products or drop prices, but if you make better products, the R&D, the expenditure drops margins. If you drop prices, you drop margins. So no matter which way you look at it, the margins are done.
Wow. Hey, John Fort, listen, I know Tim Cook hasn't been there that long, right? I mean, what, a year and a half? But the stock, while above where it was when he took over, well off its highs. Any rumblings out there out west about Tim Cook's future?
Zero. Everybody knows that Tim Cook as the CEO will be for a long time, has delivered what he said he would, though not what some people have expected. And look, on this margins question, what Reggie says could perhaps happen, but we haven't actually seen any real signs of it. And what I mean when I say that is iPhone ASPs have not come down significantly at all. iPad ASPs have with the iPad mini, but not because of particularly competition from Google. If anything, you could say it was from competition from Amazon, but Apple still dominates the tablet market, and Tim Cook was talking here confidently. We'll see what happens, and he believes they can get margins back up by managing the supply chain and also by the halo effect that he expects the Mini will create. People are buying the Mini as their first Apple device. He thinks that they will buy other higher margin Apple devices in the coming months.
All right. John Ford is a lot smarter than I am, but I'm going to push back on John just a bit. Because if the stock price, Herb, keeps going down, nobody can say Tim Cook is going to be the CEO for a long, long time. At some point, all the moms and the pops and the mutual funds, the hedge funds, we're already seeing David Einhorn, as Peter Gabriel saying, shake the tree.
First of all, it depends on what your definition of long time is. Tim Cook isn't going anywhere. You take a look at this, other than Bob Iger's, this is the same board that put him in. This is Jobs' board. He's just been there, for 15 months?
Herb, that's right. It is Jobs' board.
But it is also, it is not known as a board that is overly zealous. And by the way, he's been there. You're sort of people, you want to take him to task for what's going on now. He's running what's become a mature company and rapidly become a mature company. So at that point, he becomes Steve Ballmer, for better or for worse.
I am not being tough on Tim Cook, right? Because the stock is down a long way from its peak, and a lot of people have gotten burned if they bought there, Reggie. My point is that Tim Cook, perhaps, and we'll be fair, his job was probably the hardest in corporate America, following arguably the greatest innovator in the history of the world.
Well, and also, Apple's downslide started before Tim Cook took the reign. It started when Jobs was in office. The issue is, it's not apparent because there's a significant tail. When the low-margin business model came in, Apple was still, from a fundamental perspective, cooking on 16 cylinders or 8-cylinder engine. And they still are, fundamentally. They still make more money than almost every company
is there
in the world.
anything Apple can do product-wise, or is there any price point Apple could reach dollar-wise that would make you recommend buying the stock?
Well, there's a price point, but Apple, as Herb said, is becoming a mature company, and people are still looking at Apple as a growth play. It is no longer a growth play.
Well, though some people are bringing it back and saying it's becoming a value play at this point, but value play or mature play. That's what they said about Microsoft for years. The value play has been dead money.
Oh, here comes John. Jump in here, John.
Is the problem the market share, or is the problem the margins? You can't have it both ways. I mean, everybody agrees Apple's making more money than anybody in smartphones, and those ASPs, again, are holding up. They're also making more money than anybody in tablets, even in small tablets. Other people are breaking even, maybe making a penny or two. Apple's outselling them and making the margins, and at least they think, again, I don't know, we'll see what happens, but they think they can get the margins up from here.
Okay, well, you can have both margin and market share issues, and that's what Apple has. Apple is losing market share. Remember, the market is growing exponentially, right? But proportionally, Apple is losing market share. Absolutely.
So they're getting bigger, they're just not getting bigger as fast as
the market, as fast as the market. In addition, their margins are shrinking. They shrunk from last quarter. And in addition, Apple, a lot of people said Research in Motion also was making a lot of money, and fundamentally they were. By the time the fundamentals show the margin compression, it's too late.
And this is not Tim Cook's issue as far as I'm concerned. You don't put the blame on him and say he's cooked at this point because, again, this is something that was naturally going to happen.
Right.
We are not saying he's cooked. That is why there was a question mark at the end of the banner.
And I'm answering it.
John, Reggie, and Herb.
Well, I mean, yes, if the stock price keeps going down, if Apple has multiple product misses, lots of people are probably cooked, but we haven't seen that yet.
Yep. Thank you very much, John. Thanks very much, Reggie and Herb.